AMD has made some amazing CPUs over the years, especially with the 5000 series, and now we're in the new gen 7000, and there's some crazy stuff going on. Now with the 5000 series, we had a bunch of good chips like the 5900X, which I'm using currently. I got it for $25. Want to see a video on that? I'll tell you about it. Also, there was the 5800X3D, mind you, the 5800X, but hey, let's not go there. Had one of those, don't love it. But the X3D chip was actually pretty good, at least for gamers. Wasn't good for production work, but it was good for gamers. And this V-Cache technology was pretty impressive. Putting actual RAM on top of a die, it's been done. Of course, there's always been cache on CPUs. However, to stack it vertically is pretty cool, hence the name, V-Cache. And it was a very helpful thing in certain titles, certain games anyways, and it did help 1% lows, but not 0.1% lows, so kind of something to talk about there. It's always had some performance issues along the way, even in games that utilize it. But either way, we all forgave that, and it was a good CPU. Honestly, it was way too overpriced when it came to market, but hey, it's held up to this day pretty dang well, even against the next chips we're about to talk about. But now it's worth remembering the 5000 series is old and much cheaper, and also uses DDR4 RAM you might have lying around your house. So if you're going for an upgrade, hey, you don't even probably need a new motherboard, depending on when you bought yours. So that's worth keeping in mind. If you're looking for best price to performance, go for the 5000 series of Ryzen. Don't even go Intel, because their prices are ballsack. And believe it or not, there might be even better reason why you should go with a 5000 CPU versus the new 7000s. First things first, we need to talk about the 7900X. That was like the flagship. That's the gaming CPU and the workload CPU. That's kind of your mix, right? I've got a 5900X. That would be my progressive upgrade. Everything's about upgrades, guys. What are you going to do later on? The CPU came out the gate very hot, running at around 95 degrees Celsius. That is insanely hot. For comparison, my CPU at heaviest load will run at 72 degrees Celsius, and that's maxing everything out. With a lot of things being utilized and cores being used, that's as hot as it will get. Now, of course, this is water-cooled, I might add, on my end, so keep in mind, but this is also talking about if your system is water-cooled with the new CPU. But why does that matter? Well, think about it for a second. If your CPU is running that hot all of the time, and that's by design, that doesn't mean you did something wrong. Yeah, what's going to happen? Your air cooler is going to make your room extremely hot. Whatever you're working in, if it doesn't have an AC unit, yeah, there's going to be some issues. And even if you do have an AC unit, it's still going to be running hot. So you're just fighting and using a lot more electricity by default if you're relying on an AC to cool your room, since your computer is heating it up like an oven. So keeping in mind of that, that is what you can expect out of the box with any of these X CPUs. Now, if you don't like that, we'll go with the non-X variants. It's that simple. However, you can use eco mode to get rid of that problem and actually basically gimp your chip, your CPU, and get a little bit more performance than the 7900 or the non-X variant. So that's certainly something to keep in mind with these new CPUs, because it's more trouble than it's worth. A lot of clients who come to me have said basically they don't know why their system's overheating, things are going wrong, system crashes, throwdowns, all that stuff. It's because they don't have good cooling and it's very sensitive. You need to be smart. And guess what, guys? That also makes your AIO cooler or water cooler or closed loop, open loop doesn't make a difference, or your air fan cooler have a lot shorter lifespan. If you think about it, if it's got to work that hard all the time, it's not going to last as long as if it had kind of a cakewalk. Just think about it, it's common dang sense. And also your thermal paste, you're gonna have to be changing that more often if you're running at those type of temperatures. It's basic common sense. So lo and behold, I'm excited for these new X3D basically chips. We've only had the 5800X3D, but AMD was very keen to say that we won't have to make those same sacrifices when we move forward to the 7000 X3D chips. Yeah, we didn't have to make the same sacrifices, we had to make all new ones. All new ones, yes, all new sacrifices are being made, so you can have a 7900X3D, X3D, whatever the heck you want to call it, or 7950X3D. God, these names are annoying, aren't they?
X3D was a great part, but, it definitely didn't have the core counts to go up against some of the competitor parts.
Sure, that was a trade-off that you had to make as somebody looking to make a purchasing decision on the old product, right? Was, if I want the best gaming part, I want to go get the 5800X3D, but if I needed all the cores, then it didn't have all the cores. Well, here, you can, have your cake and eat it too.
And of course, we don't yet know on the 7800X3D how it will compare to the 5800X3D, but based on benchmarks we've seen today from the newest stuff, It's hard to say, it really is, because the schedulers in Microsoft are not up to par yet. And why is that? Because Microsoft didn't come prepared to the party, or did AMD not come? I mean, you gotta understand, because there's two dies in these new CPUs, right? There's one with the V-cache and one without. And the V-cache is not even utilizing so many cores. Now, there is the Infinity Fabric, and of course the other die can kind of like utilize some of that V-cache to a degree in some ways, but it's not going to without Microsoft's scheduler updating. And how did they decide to implement this time? Xbox Game Bar. Are you f***ing kidding me? All that being said, there's a lot of hocus pocus and magic around these CPUs with the X3D, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done in Windows schedulers, to be honest, and memory controllers. All that stuff kind of plays into factor, if you will, when it comes to these new CPUs. And with the old 5800X3D, it was much of the same thing. There was a time period where that CPU wasn't very good at launch either, but eventually over time, it became a good CPU because they fixed a lot of things. However, that was with V-cache on the entire die. Now, the V-cache is not on the entire die. You see what I'm saying? There's a whole new issue for anybody who's going above the 7800X3D, which is why they're delaying it. AMD is pushing that back, saying, we want them to try this new stuff first and see if they like it. But in reality, that's the only reason I was even excited in the first place. 8 cores is not enough for what I do. And I'm not going from a 12-core CPU back to an 8-core CPU just to have the extra benefit of V-cache. This is not Back to the Future. Hey, Doc, I'm not doing it, and you shouldn't either. If you're a content creator, you need more than 8 cores. If you're editing videos at the same time as basically streaming a game, keep in mind how many cores get utilized. And I hear a lot of people say, well, streaming only requires like 1 core. That's not true. It's never really been true, not in a very long time. It utilizes 1 to 2.5 cores of your CPU. And maybe there's streaming software out there that uses more, I don't know. We're talking OBS and Streamlabs OBS, but there's probably more out there. Now, what if you're recording your game at the same time? That uses more cores. You see what's going on here? It's going to be utilizing more cores than you have. 8 cores is not enough. All of a sudden, you're playing your game on a 4-core CPU processor that's also sharing 1 core for basically Windows, maybe even 2 cores. You're basically fighting over resources at all time on your computer, and hopefully you don't have too much going on in the background, and you constantly have to be thinking, oh, I need to close this before I start stream. That's annoying. With a 12-core CPU, you're not thinking like that. Everything can be open. You can be a total slob on your PC, and things are just working. So that's why these new 7900X3D or 7950X3D CPUs kind of came into play. God, it's so difficult to say those words, isn't it? But let's talk about that. But what kind of performance gains did we see from these, benchmarks? Well, we didn't see very much at all, honestly. It's so underwhelming. If you already have a 7900X without the 3D, or a 7950X without the 3D, you were fine. To upgrade to this would be kind of dumb. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's pretty dumb. It's a very bad idea because we're not seeing the same performance gains that we did with the 5800X3D. So I'm not really saying you should buy these, but I'm also saying it's up to you. It's your wallet at the end of the day. And if you're not in the loop, it's worth knowing that AMD also has this new technology that they're pushing out to their servers first that works with V-cache as well. It's a new thing that works with V-cache to make even better performance. This might be better for games or even just CPU performance in the future. It could be huge. And of course, this is being tested on the more professional side. So we won't really know until that comes to market. And that'll be years down the line. So if you're waiting out for that, well, probably don't. But either way, this X3D line is a total mess. And one more thing we didn't talk about. What temperatures are we getting with this new X3D line? And again, you can't use eco mode. There is no eco mode. You cannot use eco mode, which means your CPU is going to be running at 89 degrees Celsius because it can't even go to 95. According to AMD, it's not safe for the V-cache. V-cache is much more sensitive to this heat dispersion, which I find interesting. Of course, it's probably the way they're doing it because it's obviously changed just a little bit since what they did on the 5800X3D. But regardless of this, it's kind of interesting to know that the temperatures cannot go to 95 degrees. So your max point is 89 degrees Celsius and it stays there the whole time. 89 degrees Celsius is still very hot. It would actually be considered almost overheating back in the day, at least in my performance, because almost every CPU downclocks or starts to basically back off a bit. And for example, the old 5800X non-3D used to lose performance around 76 degrees or 77 degrees Celsius. That's when basically the CPU would start going backwards a bit. So you definitely wanted to water cool that CPU, or at least get some really good cooling in your case, because it was kind of annoying. You would lose quite a lot of performance and the boost clocks would go down very bad. Very, very bad. So if you kept the temperatures below that, well yeah, it would run like a charm. But as soon as you got to 76 or above, you'd start to really see the performance hits, and your 1% lows in games were absolute trash. I mean, horrible. And I get it, AMD, you're trying to get all the performance out of these CPUs that you possibly can for the consumer, right? No, it's not for the consumer at all. It's so that you can compete with Intel and look good on a dang benchmark, because that's what customers are going to look at. However, everybody watching this video should know that benchmarks are not true world performance. You gotta understand that. Unless you actually run your system like a benchmark and don't bloat it up, you're not going to get those same performance. And even then, there's a margin of error. You might get less, you might get more. You never know. Now let's talk about the absolute biggest issue with the X3D line. You have to wait for Microsoft to update their stuff, basically in Windows, to make things right. Also the memory controller on the motherboard side, which means BIOS updates. And then you also have to run Microsoft Xbox Game Bar. Are you kidding me? You know why this is a big deal and why it irritates me? Because that's one of the #1 problems with streaming at my point. I had some issues with stream. I couldn't figure out what it was. Microsoft Game Bar was running in the background even though I turned everything off. I thought I totally did everything right. I missed one key thing, and that damn thing was screwing my streams up so bad I could not stream until I fixed the issue. And I was so irritated, but even once I did figure out what I did wrong, I still started testing. I'm like, how good is Xbox Game Bar? What kind of performance drops do I get in games? 1% lows were way lower with Xbox Game Bar on. This is on the 5800X as well as the 5900X that I've seen this issue. It doesn't work well with AMD, it really does not. Some of you guys might have better luck with that. But I'm saying that if I had to use that while streaming with the stupid X3D chips, that's a deal breaker. That is an absolute deal breaker. I shouldn't be forced to use a software I do not want to use, especially one as bloated as the Xbox Game Bar or its scheduler. Yeah. I need to use it for your scheduler? Well, let me check my schedule. I don't have time for that. The whole point is, I'm not interested in these X3D chips at all, not even a little bit. No thank you. I'm sticking with the 5900X. I'll even wait until down the line when they come out with their next 8,000 or 9,000. Who knows what number they're going to skip next? Probably the 9,000. That sounds probably more official. But what happens after that? 11,000? 13,000? Why are we skipping 2 numbers all the time, AMD? I don't know. I don't get it. It sounds bigger. Alright, anyways guys, that's all you need to know about the X3D chips. I would say don't buy them, they're garbage, and I'm not impressed. I'm really not. The price points are insane for the little performance value that we've seen as basically a gamer, or a streamer and a gamer. You know, there's no performance gain to be had there. It's a waste of your money, waste of your time, and they must be crazy because the 7900X and all those chips have gone down in price so much, and they're giving bundle deals where you can get RAM and a motherboard as well for a pretty good competitive price, if not the best competitive price you can get right now, brand new. Yeah, what is the dang point? I don't see the point of the X3D line, especially at those price points. They're not competing enough with Intel's products based on what I've seen. I'm just not impressed. I think it's a wash. I think, sorry, you waited too long, and I'm not impressed. You should have had this out there earlier, and probably don't drop the prices of good stuff before you bring out the crap. I'm just saying, you're not going to sell a lot of it. It's just basic common sense. But you guys are the consumers, you guys are the customers, you let your voice be heard in the comment section. If you disagree with me, make sure to let me know. If you did agree with something I said, let me know as well, and if you just want to talk in there, just do it. Also, maybe join the Discord, it would help us out quite a bit. Anyways guys, until next time, it's been Gamer Today.